Hello and welcome to this episode of Crossing Borders with Nathan Lustig, where I normally talk to entrepreneurs and investors who are doing business across borders with a focus on Latin America. This episode is going to be a little bit different. Thought that we would try another format, and what we're going to do today is talk about the e-commerce opportunity and how we've evaluated it in Latin America. I hope it's interesting, and it's based off of a blog post that I wrote 3 years ago, and obviously there's updates since then, but this is one of the most popular blog posts that I've done, and it's been translated into Spanish, into Portuguese, into Chinese, and has gotten lots and lots and lots of views, and still gets lots of views every single month. It's also something that people ask about a lot on LinkedIn and on email and on Twitter, so I thought I'd go into more detail. You can find the original blog post that I did back 3 years ago by searching in Google or DuckDuckGo if that's your preference, Nathan Lustig, e-commerce case study, Chile, Latin America, and it should pop right up. I'm actually in Medellin, Colombia today, which is the city of eternal springtime, one of my favorite places in Latin America, and decided to record this for you. So I hope you enjoy it. Please let me know if you like episodes like this. We can do more deep dives into how we evaluate other opportunities in Latin America. If there's a demand for it, would be happy to do it. So please let me know on Twitter, LinkedIn, via our website, in the comments, whether you like this. So without further ado, I'm going to jump into the case study of e-commerce opportunities in Chile and Latin America. So back in 2012, I had just sold my second company, Entrusted, and had decided to go back to Chile to learn the rest of Spanish and see how business really got done in Latin America. And I was working for a Chilean startup, and at the same time, I was looking for my next opportunity. And just like, many things happen for startups and entrepreneurship, I was having some beers with some friends, and like most beery conversations between entrepreneurs, the conversation went into new business ideas. And all of us had seen e-commerce's growth in Chile, and we were certain it was going to continue and move towards what it was like in other developed markets like the US and Europe. And after drinking for a while longer, one of us said, well, why don't we just start a small e-commerce business? It's the best way to learn about the market and see what opportunities really are. So that conversation led to more conversations, and we actually got serious about launching a small e-commerce business to really get a handle on the market. But what product should we sell? And how would we validate the market to know if the product we wanted to sell actually made any sense? And how would we do it without spending huge amounts of money? Basically, what we wanted to know was, does e-commerce work in a country like Chile back in 2012? And could we actually validate it without spending a single dime, or in this case, peso? And so what we started to do was figure out what kind of businesses could work. So by now, probably everyone's heard of lean startup and getting bootstrapping and getting this off the ground, but a lot of how you actually do it remains mysterious to a lot of entrepreneurs, and it's something that we see even portfolio companies that we invest in struggle with. So this podcast is going to talk about some of the ways that we actually validated our business step by step. And like I said, the goal is to give an overview of the opportunities in Latam and Chilean e-commerce, and also to give you a way to think about validating your own ideas without spending months and thousands of dollars buying inventory, developing software, and wasting time on potentially unimportant things. So most of this is directly applicable to e-commerce, but I think the methodology of how we went through thinking about the business and the types of things that you would need to do can be broadly useful to any type of business, whether it's in tech or physical business. So our first step was research. We wanted to see if countries adopt e-commerce in any sort of predictable manner. We knew that e-commerce in Chile was growing at 30% per year back in 2012, but the vast majority of people hadn't ever bought anything online. we found a Forrester report that showed that there's phases of e-commerce adoption in economies, and it corroborated our hypothesis that new markets tended to follow similar paths. So this Forrester study showed that there were 4 phases. The first was connecting and entertaining. The second phase was e-business and basics. The third was comparable goods. And the fourth was subjective purchases. So phase 1 is stuff like Facebook and email. Phase 2 is online banking, travel. Phase 3, online sales, consumer goods that you can easily compare, books, media, things like that. And the last phase is apparel, grocery, beauties, more higher value goods. So we thought that back in 2012, Chile was entering the end of phase 2 and moving into phase 3, and early adopters were starting to buy online. Chile's pretty young and social, and people are comfortable online. Latam, the airline, has tickets online back in 2012, and all of the travel agents were starting to have issues and potentially going out of business. We saw early success like Busca Libre and Clandescuento, which was acquired by Groupon, and large retailers are starting to sell online. One of our best friends, Tiago Matos, is founder of Jump Seller, which is a Shopify for Latin America and has thousands of stores all across the region. We saw his business taking off, and it was clear to us that we were on the cusp of phase 3. Fast forward to 2018, and we're definitely in the middle of phase 3 in Latin America. I would say moving into phase 4. And so back to 2012, we decided to go for it. Step 2, what should we sell? Should we sell a product, or should we try to sell pickaxes to the miners and sell some sort of a tool that would help e-commerce go forward? So we made a map of the industry in Latin America and looked at businesses that made money in e-commerce in the US. By 2012, we saw 7 opportunities in the e-commerce market in Latin America. The first was creating an Amazon clone, so high volume, low margin. Second were niche products with amazing stories and customer service like the Dollar Shave Club. We saw creating your own brand like Warby Parker, so that would be vertically integrating and creating a brand. Being a Shopify and selling the pickaxes to the miners and creating the infrastructure. Looking at payment systems, logistics and delivery, so it could be drop shipping, and getting the exclusive representation of a foreign brand, which would be a medium margin business but low competition. We quickly discarded doing an Amazon clone because we believe that the Amazon of Latin America will likely be Amazon. Might be Linio, which is from Rocket Internet, and it could be another entrant into the market like Alibaba, which now is, from our numbers, one of the biggest, if not the biggest, e-commerce by number of packages in Chile, and expanding fast in Latin America. We also saw that companies like Busca Libre were potentially struggling with this competition already all the way back in 2012 and quickly discarded that idea. We discarded doing a Shopify clone because our friend Tiago was already working on it and starting to have success. We looked at payments, but although it's a massive problem, back in 2012, we didn't see that we could solve it. We decided that it was likely that someone like Stripe, Braintree, PayPal, Venmo would use VC funding from the US to attack the Latin American market. Over the last 6 years, there's been a huge amount of Stripe clones all the way from Mexico to Colombia to Ecuador to Peru to Chile. Basically, the entire region has their own Stripe clones. And it's turning into an interesting market. Remains to be seen whether one of the Latin American companies will win that market or whether Stripe will come into the market strong, or you might have local competitors that win each individual market. That's something probably for another podcast we can talk about more in detail. So we looked at selling a commodity product with an amazing story, but decided if you have a commodity product in the medium term, your margin will go to zero. So what does that mean? If you have a commodity product like, say, glass bottles or plates, at some point, someone else is going to come into the market, and if you don't have a brand on top of it, that margin's going to zero. It's a race to the bottom on the internet. And you can look at Amazon, where anytime, even with interesting new products, as long as they're copyable, those margins go to zero really quickly. So that left us with 3 options. We looked at getting the exclusive distribution rights to a product that didn't already exist in Chile or somewhere else in Latin America. creating our own product from scratch, Warby Parker style, or starting with a commodity product knowing that our margin would eventually go to zero, but with the goal of adding an exclusive representation to our product once we got clients and actually validated the idea. We chose option 3, selling a commodity product and trying to get exclusive representation, for 2 reasons. Creating our own brand was too expensive and time consuming, and introducing a new brand that people didn't trust into the equation would be difficult because the vast majority of our potential clients were buying online for the first time. Now, many people have bought online in Latin America, but I still think that creating a new brand, unless you've done it really, really well, can be difficult when you're getting into e-commerce. So step 3, what product should we actually sell? We made a list of 50 plus products that we were interested in selling. Huge long list of them. I'll only mention a few of them, but they were diapers, condoms, brand name sunglasses, birth control pills, white label sunglasses, cosmetics, pet supplies, eyeglasses, men's personal grooming items, disposable shavers, perfume, women's shoes, jewelry and accessories, custom t-shirts, bikes, purses and wallets, wine and beer, tea and coffee, electronics accessories like iPhone cases, headphones, watches, baby stuff, women's underwear, artwork, vitamins, soccer jerseys, kids' toys, home furniture and accessories, office furniture, custom shirts, backpacks, and a whole bunch more. We created a list of the criteria we wanted to find to define the best product for us to get started with. Our criteria was a bunch of points, I think about 16 of them, and I'll go through each one. So step 1 was easy to ship. Shipping in Latin America was and still is expensive and unreliable in many countries for large products, and pretty much in all countries for large products, and many countries even for small ones. We needed a small, lightweight product. That quickly eliminated products like furniture, diapers, pet supplies, beer, and wine. Number 2 was high margins. We wanted to be in a high margin business, which eliminated all the low margin ones from the list. We wanted something that had few returns. Since shipping is a big problem, we wanted a product with as few returns as possible so we didn't have to deal with shipping both ways. The next one was repeat orders. If we had to struggle to get our first clients, and many of our clients would be buying online for the first time, we wanted them to be able to buy again. That knocked out sunglasses, bikes, watches, backpacks, and artwork off the list. One big thing is that people don't trust e-commerce. So the next one was, do you have to try it before you buy it? We wanted a product that you didn't have to try before you bought, which knocked a significant amount of products off the list, both for products that were high priced and for products that might not fit you right. Number 6 was average cart size. We wanted an average cart size of at least $30, which would allow us to have free shipping, but still allow people to buy online without taking too much risk that their expensive purchase wouldn't arrive. Number 7 was average item price. We wanted a lowish average item price of around $5 so that the buyer could buy multiple items to get our average cart size, and so that people could buy one cheap item to make their first e-commerce transaction as low risk as possible. Step 8, criteria 8, was market penetration. We wanted a product that was popular but that you couldn't find in every corner. Number 9 was current available selection in Chile. We wanted to find a product where there were very few choices in the market so that our product was a commodity, but that there weren't that many choices that you had to think about it. Was it easy to access for us to get the supply? So could we actually get the product to resell in Chile? Was it available there, or did we have to import it? Number 11, access to supply chains outside of major cities. So Chile is 17 million people, about 7 million of those are in Santiago, and then another million plus in Valparaiso. So about half the country is located in a small belt of maybe a 2-hour drive. What about the other half of the country? Could you find this product outside of major cities? If there was a problem, it was probably good for us for e-commerce. Next was number 12. Was buying that product today poor customer experience, and how was the customer service after the sale? Could an online experience actually be better than the offline experience that was there today? And what was the post-sale experience like? 13 was competition. What did competition in Chile and Latin America look like? Press potential. Could we get into the press with the product easily? Success in the US. Was it one of the first products that was successful in the early days of US e-commerce, or something that came later? Number 16, and finally, which is super important, was, do we actually like selling it, and is it going to be any fun? It's one of the most important things when you're starting a business because it doesn't make sense to work on something you don't like unless you absolutely have to. When you're starting a business, you're going to be committing for multiple years. The average to an exit in the US is 7 years. In Latin America, it's probably even longer. And it's especially fun to get going in the beginning, but you're going to hit really tough times. So if you don't like it, it's going to suck. So it was one of our criteria for sure that we wanted to make sure it was good. So we scored all of the products and quickly found that there was one product that was clearly better than all the rest. It was small, lightweight, easy to ship, didn't need to be tried on, had 0 returns, cost about $3 per product, and could have an average cart size of around $30. It was also a terrible customer experience to buy offline for cultural reasons, but had decent margins. We had a contact at a distributor who would help us buy our initial stock quickly and easily, and we were ready to get started. So what was that product? After all of our research, we decided to sell condoms online. Since Chile is a very Catholic country where sex ed is almost non-existent, we knew there wouldn't be much competition and it would be fairly easy to get press. We're also motivated to try to help solve a social problem by providing online sex ed resources where scared young people could learn one of the most important lessons of their lives before making one of the most important decisions of their life. And most of all, it would be also pretty interesting and fun to do. Step 4 was, how can we validate this without spending much time and a lot of money? Now that we'd chosen condoms as our product based on our research, it was time to validate that people would actually buy them online without us spending thousands of dollars on a website and initial stock. We mapped out a plan to get started. First, we looked into Mercado Libre, which is Latin America's eBay, to see if people were actually selling condoms online already. We quickly found that they were and Googled to see if any other stores were selling condoms online. They weren't, so we decided to create our own Mercado Libre listings to see if we could get any buyers. We received numerous messages from potential buyers, but we always told them we were sold out and we didn't have any condoms to sell them. We found that there was a market. Next, we put up new ads on Mercado Libre and actually made sales. When someone said they wanted to make a purchase, we walked to our local pharmacy, purchased the products, and then went to meet the buyer, usually in one of Santiago's metro stations, to make the exchange. At this point, we didn't allow online payment or shipping for 2 reasons. First, we wanted to make the barrier to purchase as low as possible. And second, we wanted to meet our clients and learn more about them. We found that most of our clients were young, ignorant, uneducated, scared 15 to 21-year-olds who clearly were going to have sex, many for the first time, and weren't comfortable buying at a pharmacy. It's important to remember in Chile that at a pharmacy, it's really hard to buy. I'll go into a little more detail in a second here. After about a week and a half and 5 purchases, we allowed people to pay online with free instant bank transfer to validate they'd pay online. They did. After another week, we added free shipping and the orders kept coming in. We kept filling them by walking to the pharmacy. Now, walking to the pharmacy put us in the shoes of the potential client who were trying to get the product today. Shined the spotlight on the terrible process we were trying to fix, especially when we had to purchase large quantities of condoms like Climax Control for premature ejaculation and XXL condoms at the counter in front of massive lines of people who could hear everything that you're buying. Now, in Chile, they keep all condoms behind the desk and you have to ask the pharmacist. And at the pharmacy, you have to take a number. So there's always lots of people. Can see why if you're a 15, 17, even 25-year-old, you may not want to use that process or like it. Next, we had to validate that people would buy from a standalone website outside of the friendly confines of Mercado Libre. So we set up a landing page using Jump Seller with a 99 Designs logo and sent some Facebook traffic to the site. We saw that people were adding products to their cart trying to buy. We quickly added Dinero Mail, a Latin American payment processor that charges 7% fees and holds your money for 1 to 2 months once you've started to sell online, filling orders still at the pharmacy. By this point, we've spent a total of $300 on 99 Designs and Facebook ads and postage filling orders. We validated that people wanted to buy condoms online, but that they'd buy from a site they didn't know, off Mercado Libre, and we were ready to try to scale the business. Another comment on payments. Today, there's a few other payments solutions that have been integrated into sites like Jump Seller. There's sites like Cuvo in Chile, Kushki in Colombia and Ecuador, and many, many more across the region. So step 5 was building the foundation. We decided to spend another $500 for a custom jump seller design, purchased $400 of stock of Chile's 3 best-selling condoms, it's lifestyles in case you were wondering, wrote 20 educational articles to get organic traffic, and officially launched La Condonería. We launched with the 3 most popular brands, Lifestyles, Trojan, and Durex, and all 24 popular styles you could find at pharmacies, even though we only purchased stock of 3 styles. We priced the other 21 styles we didn't have in stock 50% higher than what you could buy in the pharmacy, so we could see if people were price sensitive, and also because I was sick of walking to the pharmacy to buy condoms each day. We saw that we had 4 distinct niches of clients and created content and packs for each one. We had the young adults between 15 and 21 who didn't know the first thing about what they were doing and were scared to go to the pharmacy. We created a first time pack that included a sex ed pamphlet that helped young people decide if they were ready for their first time, and if they were, how to be safe doing it. Second group were women who didn't want to go to the pharmacy because of social stigma. We created a women's pack with dozens of articles about female sex ed. Number 3 were 24 to 25-year-old men who bought 2 to 3 months worth of condoms in one time to stock up. We created the pack Heavy User, a popular 30 pack. The last one were professionals who were looking for a good price. We created a bulk pack with 90 condoms that offered big discounts to people who were in the business. After 4 months, we now purchased all 24 styles and were from the distributor, and we're growing quickly. Our content was incredibly popular, leading to 100,000 monthly unique users from organic traffic, a loyal following, and lots of newspaper articles and radio appearances. Our clients loved us because we were really actually helping people. In a country where most people have incredible misconceptions about sex, abortion is illegal. Getting the morning after pill back in 2012 was extremely difficult. You had to go to a doctor. Now it's easier and you can go to the pharmacy. And young people didn't have anyone to talk to about making an important life decision. We were clearly doing good. Our live chat was incredibly important for 2 reasons. It became the place for people to go when they had questions about sex, and many times we had to refer people to their local clinics or to a specialist to help them solve their problems. We could also help guide people to our purchase and push them towards the best products, the highest margin, whatever we needed to move. We also talked to someone on our chat. They converted 33% of the time, where we had about a 1% conversion rate on the site. By the 6th month in operation, we were selling about $5,000 per month, just about breaking even. We were convinced that we had found a good niche, learned how to do the logistics well, and how to acquire clients cheaply, but we needed to explore other ways to keep up our margins and make it bigger. We knew that if we continued to sell imported commodity condoms, we'd never do better than a 10% final margin, even at scale, which isn't going to work for an e-commerce. Step 6, new opportunities for scaling revenue. After a few weeks of brainstorming, we came up with this list and worked to validate each one. First, take the exclusive representation of a well-known foreign condom brand and move our margins all the way up to 65%, up from 10%. Second was to create our own white label condom brand and get up to 95% net margins. 3 was add high margin sex toys, and 4 was convince local condom brands to advertise on the site. We first looked at taking the exclusive representation of a well-known high quality brand. We had multiple meetings in Santiago from an executive from one of the best companies in the world, but in the end he decided to award representation to another offline company from Chile. We talked to a fast-growing, well-known US brand that hadn't launched in Latin America yet, but it became clear quickly that they didn't understand the Chilean market. They wanted us to purchase a half container's worth in our first order and 2 containers worth by year 2. Unfortunately, Chile's entire market only uses about 8 containers per year, so we're being asked to purchase 5% of the total market in our initial order and 20% by year 3. This didn't make sense. As an aside, Chile's consumption isn't low because they're much less active than their neighbors, just use fewer. That's because for a couple of reasons. One is there's more long-term relationships where people are using the pill, but I digress. Next, we looked at manufacturing our own brand and importing. This was important because it was a big opportunity and very attractive margins. Getting 1 unit into Chile the final cost was about 2 cents, and we could sell it for $1.20. It's really big margins. But the minimums were high and Chile's regulatory barriers were almost impossible to comply with. For example, we had to give the government 10,000 units for testing of each style before we could get the brand registered, and we were told off the record that Chile wouldn't approve a new brand that wasn't approved in another developed country in the world. We looked at adding high-margin sex toys, but we didn't think it would work for multiple reasons. First, there's already a well-known, highly successful one called Happy Jane, which controls the market in Chile. And two, we weren't sure that many of our clients actually would be purchasers. We did some tests using products we purchased from Amazon, which, funny enough, I brought to Chile in my luggage. Definitely got a warning letter from the TSA saying that they opened up my bag for extra security checks, but we couldn't make the numbers work. We tried to convince local brands to pay us, but they all had traditional conservative views and weren't interested. The best we could do was to negotiate free samples that we could sell later, but it quickly became clear that this method wouldn't work in the long term. It just didn't scale. After a year in business, we were selling $8,000 per month with 100% free organic and social traffic, making about 10% net margins, and it clearly wasn't worthwhile to keep trying to expand. While it had turned into a nice small niche business that will continue to grow back in 2012, it was never going to be big business, but it served its purpose. We learned everything that there is to know about Chilean e-commerce and the massive opportunities that entrepreneurs can attack. We decided to spin off the business, and one of the partners kept it to continue operate. He did so for about another year and a half and then decided to wind it down. So what did we learn from this whole process? So if you're not going to be Amazon or have millions of dollars of VC to attack payments or drop shipping, we believe that the opportunities were to, one, focus on creating your own product that had high margins, sort of like Warby Parker, or get exclusive representation of a product like one of our friends did with a product from Australia and did well. Delivery in Chile, for example, for small items is pretty much solved. It works well. It's spotty in other countries, and there's lots of startups that have come into the business to do last mile delivery, and I think that problem will get solved in the next, say, 2 to 3 years. Payments work in Chile, and they're being solved in the rest of Latam, and the infrastructure is well executed. So jump sellers and other competitors are doing well. Plus, it wouldn't surprise me if someday Shopify moves into the Latam market either by acquiring somebody or just decides to open up an office. So from our list of 2012, many of the ideas that we have been launched and have done well. One of the most interesting ones is called Baby Tuto, which is selling millions of dollars each year of baby products just in Chile. They do their own branded delivery for big items. There was Obsess, which was a makeup marketplace, which closed in 2012, probably from low margins. There was Brew, which was a coffee subscription club, which closed because of low margins. Magna Partners, which was custom t-shirts and raised some money from equity crowdfunding, which closed this year because of low margins. Pouchy, which was a friend of ours product. They did well, but decided to leave the market. Linio, which is an Amazon clone from Rocket Internet. It's doing pretty well. Defeaty, which is a Zappos clone from Rocket Internet, also doing well. There's lots of bike stores that are doing well, but they're sort of medium businesses, small businesses. There was Di Perfumes, which is a perfume store. Adorate, which was a women's underwear brand, which closed in 2014. And Depto 51, which is a design marketplace in Chile, which has started to do well. So what did we learn about e-commerce in Latin America? Took a bunch of lessons. So the first is that you can build, and there will be lots and lots, and there already are lots and lots of successful lifestyle businesses where small teams can make really good money that are not really VC backable. That's totally fine and is awesome. You should just know going into it that you shouldn't be trying to raise money if you're looking to build one of these medium-sized e-commerce that you can live off of, but maybe it won't sell for huge money. Second is that outside of Brazil and Mexico and maybe Argentina and maybe Colombia in the future, most of these markets are tough because they're small markets. It's not one market. You can't think of Latin America as one big place with 600 million people. You can't think of it as Spanish-speaking side plus Brazilian side. You actually have to think about it on a country-by-country basis with lots of different logistics, payment terms, shipping, everything, cultures in every single one. So it's difficult. The other thing that we found is that it's low margin unless you're doing vertically integrated Warby Parker style stuff. And we think that margins are going to go low, go even lower. What we've seen looking at deals that we've looked at for other entrepreneurs, people that have asked us to invest, is that valuations are very low in Latin America for most e-commerce, especially outside of Brazil and Mexico. We've seen valuations that are as low as 0.5x sales, so 50% of sales in a year is your valuation, all the way up to 1.5x. I would say 0.8 to 1.2 is what we're seeing in most of the places. We also see that Amazon now is delivering in many countries. Started in Chile a few years ago where you could get small, lightweight items. Now it's basically the whole Amazon catalog is available in Chile, shipped direct from the US. Same with Amazon's gotten into the Mexican market, a little bit in the Brazilian market, and is likely to expand in others. Places like Colombia, people buy off of Amazon and have their friends deliver for them or get delivered via freight forwarders in Miami. Alibaba and China are starting to do work in Latin America. Alibaba, Jack Ma was in Argentina about a year and a half, 2 years ago, looking at exporting Argentine products to China and also looking at importing Alibaba stuff to Latin America, in Mexico and Chile especially. So on those ends, we think that it's going to be tough to compete. At Magma, we don't invest in e-commerce because it's capital intensive, it's low margin, it's difficult to do, and valuations have been low. What we do invest in is a lot of the pickaxe technology that goes alongside e-commerce. So we've looked at logistics and delivery companies. We've looked at payment companies, and we're about to finish a deal investing in one. We look at logistics. We look at financing, trade financing. We look at invoice financing, like from Portal Finance. There's lots and lots of different, anything that goes into that supply chain we're willing to look at, but not into e-commerce itself. Not that it's necessarily a bad business. It's because it's obvious that Latin America is going to be a big e-commerce market in the future, because people need goods, people need services, and online is the way of the future, but it's just not for us. One of the other interesting trends in Latin America e-commerce is the rise of last mile delivery. So this is a business that makes more financial sense in Latin America than it does in the US, but it remains to be seen if they can build profitable businesses. So these are Instacart clones or that are based in Latin America. First one is called Rappi. They're the first, I believe the first, or one of the first Colombian companies to go through Y Combinator. They were the first investment from Andreessen Horowitz in Latin America, and they've raised $180 million in the last 12 months doing their delivery of anything business that started in Colombia, is now in Chile, is now in Argentina, and expanding in the region. The Chilean version of that, which also launched in Mexico, is called Corner Shop. It's mostly supermarket delivery, but you can get other products as well. Glovo is just for order whatever you want. They are a Spanish company. They've raised $30 million in the last bit. And Mercadoni has also raised significant money from Movile, which is one of the Latin America's biggest e-commerce or online mobile companies. I think that the total amount raised from those four companies is approaching $300 million in the last 12 to 18 months. You can listen to my podcast with one of the founders of Mercadoni. Link it in the show notes. One of the other trends that we're seeing is, and it's probably not for VC, but is likely a very lucrative business for potential private equity investors or just individuals who want to do this, are vertically integrated ghost kitchens for food and for supermarkets and potentially other businesses. So the idea behind these is, why do you have to have a expensive storefront or an expensive restaurant if you're going to do deliveries? So in Santiago, one of the most successful restaurants that delivers doesn't exist. It's actually in a house somewhere, and there's 5 different restaurants or 4 different restaurants that deliver directly from there to your door. So they're much more profitable than a traditional restaurant. We've seen that Rappi is working with restaurants in Colombia on not necessarily owning them, but on partnership bases, and that consumer delivery for groceries is likely to follow that model. I would bet that it happens in Brazil, Colombia, or potentially Peru first, where one of these companies will build their own warehouse, not have a consumer-facing walk-in physical location, but it will be all online. We think that that's an interesting model for many other products in Latam, and is something that could potentially go as fast, if not faster, than the US. So this is what we've learned and our view of Latin America, starting all the way back from 2012, when we first started looking at selling condoms on the internet, all the way to what Magma invests in Latin America and how we see the market. We could be completely wrong about what's going on, and would love to hear comments, whether it's on Twitter, LinkedIn, in the comments to this blog post, responses in email. And we're also always happy to look at companies, even if it's e-commerce that we won't invest on, to give feedback. So thanks again for listening. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Crossing Borders. Know you had to listen to me for 35-40 minutes. It's not normal, but I hope you liked it. If you did, please let me know, and I'll think about doing another episode where we break down one type of market. Thanks again for listening. As always, if you like the podcast, please share it with a friend. It's the best way for it to grow. And I'd love to get more ratings on iTunes and Stitcher, because that gives us legitimacy. Right now, we have most of our listeners are Latin American entrepreneurs and US investors and US entrepreneurs. Love to be able to expand that more, to share the amazing stories of entrepreneurs from around the region that we have in Latin America. Thanks again, and have a great day.